people were invested in this Alec Murdaugh trial. I spoke with people who were inside the courthouse today. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis made his first public appearance in South Carolina today. This is the strongest we have felt the wind all day. What we know right now is that an NCPD officer was involved in a crash right here on the corner of Dorchester Road and Scarsdale Road. People lined up for hours hoping to get a seat in court today to learn Alec Murdaugh's fate. The waves were coming up all the way to where I'm standing right now, with that main concern being beach erosion. They haven't gotten closure, and this report was something that the family had been waiting on. It is pouring down rain as we speak. The wind is just so strong. You can see how it's just moving these stoplights. They had those students in custody within minutes of being tipped off. Still, parents have plenty of questions they want answered. The incriminating audio has several Republican and Democratic leaders demanding Crystal Matthews' resignation. This is the second audio recording released by Project Veritas, with shocking statements coming from Matthews. We went to Goose Creek in hopes of getting a response from the state lawmaker about what she said. This is video of one of multiple attempts to get a response from State Representative Crystal Matthews on the leaked audio.
Please leave my private residence. Thank you.
Racist and bigoted, that's how the chairman of the state Republican Party describes the recording.
If you're a white individual in that district being represented by her right now, how do you feel about potentially having to go to her as your representative to get help on a particular issue you may be working on?
In a statement, Matthews claims she, quote, said what she said, but she contends the recording was taken out of context. Matthews says she was referring to MAGA Republicans and not all white people. She's calling for Project Veritas to release the entire recording. We asked the founder about her request.
You said that you release more than a typical recording.
I sure do.
Yes. Now Matthews is calling for you to release that entire videotape. Are you going to do that as well by holding yourself to that higher standard?
No reporter releases their full, raw reporter's notebooks ever. That never happens.
So then how are you holding yourself to a higher standard as a reporter by not fulfilling their request?
By showing Matthews in her own words so that you can hear the intonation in her voice.
Still, leaders remain disturbed by the audio. In a statement, Democratic State Representative Justin Bamberg called her words toxic and an inaccurate representation of the Democratic Party. Joe Cunningham, the Democratic candidate for governor, shared the same opinion. He's calling for Matthews to resign. Now, Matthews is trying to replace Republican Senator Tim Scott in November. We have all of those statements from Cunningham, Bamberg, the GOP, and Matthews herself on our website at abcnews4.com. Working for you live in studio, I'm Floriana Boardman, ABC News 4. Katie, the proposal for the nearly 70 acres of land includes retail, restaurants, hotels, and housing. About 19 acres are dedicated to public open spaces like parks or waterfront access. The maximum building height would be 7 stories. There is no maximum building size. The Charleston Preservation Society says it's worried about the density of the potential development.
In what's being proposed, what it looks like will happen will just be large buildings that's ground plate will cover an entire city block. That would be the concern. The plan, based on public input, has been submitted to the city's technical review committee. If approved, it'll go on to the city's planning committee and then to city council. And coming up tonight at 6, hear why the Preservation Society says they want the process to slow down. Working for you live in downtown Charleston, Floriana Boardman, ABC News 4. Katie, a typical CCSD board agenda has a call to order, approval of meeting minutes, and then a moment of silence before the Pledge of Allegiance. But a new amendment to board policy could allow for prayer to be part of that procedure before meetings. Board members voted 5-4 last night in favor of a proposed policy amendment. That amendment would allow for a prayer of, quote, wisdom and discernment to open special and regular board meetings. However, there are some stipulations. That prayer can only be directed and conducted by school board members. The prayer must be non-sectarian. It can only reference God or the Almighty and may not invoke one religion in preference of others. Lastly, it must precede public business. Still, it's a divisive policy among board members.
You have board members who feel this sense that they need to petition something greater than themselves for help and making wise decisions.
We're an elected body, which means we govern in a homogenous environment, and we should not be introducing any form of religion aside from what someone may want to do individually.
The amendment must go to a second reading before it can be officially adopted, which could be as soon as the next board meeting. And coming up tonight at 6, what Low Country school districts are already doing this? On my right in the Oakcrest neighborhood, residents tell me they didn't see much flooding at all, just the typical rain and wind. But residents on my left tell me that they saw up to a foot of water in their living rooms.
The whole street. I think there was a 4Runner right across my street, and it was over their tires.
Taylor Sloan says she was one of the lucky ones on her street during Hurricane Ian. Floodwaters only came up to her doorstep, but her next door neighbor, not so much.
That neighbor to my left was, I think, like up to their knees in their living room in water.
County Councilwoman Jenny Honeycutt says improvements are underway and previous improvements are working. She says these before and after pictures demonstrate the progress.
The way we know that is areas that used to flood and remain flooded for a period of days, even up to a week, as the tide went out, those areas receded.
Meanwhile, in a different part of James Island, neighbors say their front yards were unrecognizable.
Friday, all of this was underwater, our entire front yard. You couldn't see the grass.
Julie Hallman says she sees flooding regularly and hasn't noticed many improvements.
It's scary to see, your property being damaged and not knowing what's going to happen, and frustrating that there seems to be kind of a lack of concern by some elected officials about, our livability and our properties.
One of the intergovernmental improvement projects was in Hallman's backyard, which backs up to the James Island Municipal Golf Course. She says while the ditch works, there is still work that needs to be done.
People have vegetation growing in them, and it's hard for people to, I think, clean them out themselves.
We're told government officials have been canvassing to collect data for drainage projects underway.
I think the hope is that they're going to move some of these projects up to high priority with all the info they collected yesterday.
Now, if you experienced flooding problems, County Council urges you to let them know. You can find a flooding prevention questionnaire at abcnews4.com. Working for you live in James Island, I'm Floriana Boardman, ABC News 4. We're here at the Dorchester County Career School, where they've seen record enrollment numbers, and we're at the most popular class right now, welding. Let's give it a try. Working for you live in North Charleston and Walterboro in Columbia, Moncks Corner in Folly Beach. And I'm Floriana Boardman, ABC News 4.